when it's time to heal and feel, be real. You just gotta take your time, unwind and chill. Cause now it's time to love yourself. Build emotional and mental health. Cause Black woman, it's time to heal and feel, be real.
Hey y'all, we're back. Welcome to Black Women Healing,
where we heal on the daily.
And as usual, we want to start off with our first segment, Black Women Healing Appreciation segment is what it is titled. And this past week, we highlighted Miss Shirley, who recently passed away. And it was a post just generally just highlighting her and all the beautiful work that she's done. And someone made the comment, Miss Shirley is a special person who took her pain and used it as fuel to impact many lives. We will never forget her. And just want to honor Miss Shirley and all that she's done. She is so amazing. As y'all see, we have a special guest, Dr. Plummer. We will keep the intro short as we want you to lean in and share a little bit about you. Dr. Plummer is a visionary mental health expert, educator, speaker, and author dedicated to redefining how minorities are seen, supported, and healed in clinical spaces. Her book, The Essential Guide for Counseling Black Women, which recently came out, is her first of three, serving as both a professional resource for educators and mental health providers and an accessible guide for Black women looking to heal. Dr. Plummer, flash that book again and tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Hey now, y'all. Hey. I am, again, Dr. LaNail Plummer. I am the CEO of Onyx Therapy Group, which is an international mental health company. A little different from a group practice because we do a wide range of things, including direct services, but we also do a lot of government contracting to make sure that they are using mental health in their practices, using psychological safety and making sure that their employees are doing well as well. I'm also a department chair at a university, Trinity Washington University. So not only do I provide the direct services and give the space for clinicians and do supervision, I also think it's important for me to educate counselors in training to make sure that they get what they need. And if that's not enough, I said, okay, Lord, what do you want me to do next? He said, girl, I want you to write this book. And so I wrote The Essential Guide for Counseling Black Women, which I am extremely proud about. 2 days after its release, it became a #1 bestseller, and it is on the Forbes list for 2026. And if that's not enough, I am a mother of 2 college-age kids, one that is graduating in just a couple of months from North Carolina A&T, and my freshman who's at FAMU. So we are a deep HBCU family around here, blackety black everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Happy History Month. I don't know,
Yes.
all
yes.
yes.
Yes. I love that.
Thank
my
you.
goodness. Yes, shout out to you and everything that you do. Oh my goodness.
Thank you. Thank you. God is good. Thank you.
All the
All the
time.
time.
All the time. Yeah. Oh, we about to have church in here. We about to have somebody tell me. I thought it was a major compliment, but I was like, hold on, y'all. Hold on. Somebody described the book as a Black woman's Bible. I said, oh, shoot, not the Black woman's Bible. But I thought it was rich in how she described it that way. So we can have a little church around the Black woman's Bible, around the Essential Guide for Counseling Black Women.
Amen.
Amen.
Yeah. So in thinking of going on to our next segment. So this next segment is things Black women don't say out loud. I have a backup, but I want to give it to you, Dr. Plummer. Is there something that you've been thinking about or just something that comes to mind when thinking of things that Black women don't say out loud?
You know, that's an interesting question from my perspective because Black women are always talking to me. So, and they say everything out loud. I hear everything. They tell me all the stuff, you know? So, but I wish that there were more things that they would say to other people, and that would be being clear around their boundaries. That would mean saying that they are more than physically tired, that they're emotionally tired, that they are tired of thinking, you know, that they have decision fatigue, and not feeling that they're weak when they say it. And I would want more Black women to say to the world, treat me like I'm precious, which is one of our new mottos as it connects to the book, but treat me like a gem. Don't just treat me, you know, like I'm strong, but also treat me like I'm fragile. Treat me, and I think I talk about it towards the end of the book, but treat me, you know, like your most treasured possession, you know, take care of me. take care of me.
That is so beautifully said, and I think that, like, in honor of Black History Month and, this being Love Month, and we wanna marry the 2 together, Dr. Plummer, what does self-love look like for you in this season? Because even as you were sharing, I was like, that's almost like a form of self-love of expressing how I need to be treated, and I need to honor my boundaries in that way. But I'm curious for you, what is it looking like in this season?
Ooh, what a great question. I'm often teased because my friends call me the queen of self-care because one thing I am going to do is take care of myself. But what that looks like is that I may also wake up really early in the morning to do that. So I wake up around 4:44 because it's an angel number. And I do things that I enjoy. I love water. I don't know if you guys are into the spiritual practice of Ifa, but my Arisha is Yemiya. And so I always connect with water first thing in the morning. So I'm like washing dishes or doing laundry or something like that. It always is healing for me. I drink a lot of tea and I spend a lot of time in meditation. I'm probably in silence for about an hour to an hour and a half every day. Um, but you know what's funny about this too, because I work out a lot. I'm a veteran of the United States Army. So and my dad was a veteran also. So I grew up
Thank
in a
you for your
house where working
service.
out was important. Thank you. You're welcome. But I found that over these last since the book was starting to come out and we started doing a lot of promo for it, I wasn't working out as much as I normally did, but I found myself drawn to my coloring books. And so I've been coloring a lot. And there's some beautiful coloring books centered on Black women. Like the characters, if you will, the art is Black women in our fullness, is Black women with full our full facial features, our full hips. It's Black women reading books. It's Black women in the one I'm coloring right now is a woman in the grocery store. So I'm coloring the apples and the oranges and the pears. And, so self-care, self-love for me right now looks like loving myself the way I would tell my children, like slow down a little bit. It's okay. It's gonna work out. Do something that you always enjoy doing. Connect to those nostalgic memories of your childhood, like coloring and playing games and watching cartoons. And so I'm loving myself as I'm going through this big transition, writing a book for my women, my Black women. And as my clinicians has been a big thing. I'm hearing a lot of stories. I'm hearing a lot of vulnerability more than when I'm seeing clients. And so I come back home and I love on myself. Coloring and I'm drinking my teas and I'm taking my time and I have my do nothing days. There's 2 days out the month I do nothing at all. I just lay down on my couch and do nothing.
I love that.
Yeah.
Donika loves coloring books too, so anytime I hear about a coloring book, I automatically think of her, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, look, that is amazing self-care practices. When you were talking about the coloring book, I was thinking about Myra because it's Love Month, and Myra, she's so sweet, y'all. She sent me a coloring book for Valentine's Day, and it's a Black woman, like it's Black women, it's images of Black women, and I do
Yes.
like the color, and so
Yes.
that is so sweet. Thank you, Myra,
You're
again.
welcome, girl.
So
That is
sweet.
sweet, Myra. Okay, Myra.
She's that girl. She's that girl, definitely. Um, but also I'm over here, like, if you see my faces, it's because I'm like, how are you like, you do everything. I'm over here literally when you said you was a veteran, I was like,
Did
when?
you fit that into your life?
So I'm sorry if y'all see my faces, especially you or you. I was just like, how? But hearing the self-care, it almost makes sense where
That's
it's like
how,
you
yeah.
take care of yourself.
Yeah, yeah. I I really utilize the time that I have. I believe that God has put me here on this earth for a particular purpose and it is healing. It is to heal. I think that I may have been another person in another life and I was a healer then as well. And so this is another just iteration of that. So
Huh.
it doesn't feel heavy for me, everything that I do, because right now, especially with the book, is I'm doing 3 full-time jobs, and I am quick to tell Black women, do not overwork, do not stretch yourself, do not take yourself to the edge and get burned out. And they say, Dr. Plummer, how are you saying that when you got all these jobs? And I say, I don't feel burnt out. I'm not at the edge. You know what I mean? I very much respect my time boundaries. If these are the hours that I'm doing clinical work, then I'm doing clinical work. If these are the hours I'm writing articles for Essence and Ebony and Forbes, then that's when I'm doing that. If these are my teaching and planning hours, then I'm doing that. Um, and and I'm very clear with my team, don't cross my boundaries. Don't put nothing on my calendar when I said I'm not going to do anything that day, right? Like, don't expect me to turn something around quicker than I said that I would. And they respect those boundaries, and they are able to institute those boundaries in their lives too, which means that as a team, we flow. Nobody is stressed out, nobody is burnt out, nobody is um, feeling the extremes. And it's because they see me doing a lot, but they also see how I do a lot. And it is with alignment, and it is with peace, and it is with time management, the boundary around time.
That's
Yeah.
so beautiful.
Thank
Yeah. And thinking of that, why would you say it is so important, or why would you say it has been important to create a body of work that truly reflected and focused on the Black woman experience?
Because it's not a lot out there. Most of the work that's out there for Black women is fiction, historical fiction, or, even romanticized fiction. And that's because publishers um, don't always think that we value our clinical work. And so they don't allow for us to write a lot in those spaces. Or it could be the opposite, in that Black women feel like we need an escape. And so let us escape into fantasy, let us escape into um, the more literature type of work. My book doesn't allow us to escape. In fact, it's a mirror. You have to look at yourself. As I sign people want signed copies of the book, which is beautiful to me. And as I sign them, I'm usually mentioning something about self-awareness. I want the book to be a bit of a mirror for us to decide what we see in ourselves that we really appreciate and we want to keep and we want to amplify, but also what do we see in ourselves that no longer serve us? Maybe that worked for us when we were 15, maybe that worked for us when we were 25, but it doesn't work for us now at 35 or 45 or 55. Maybe it worked for our mother and our grandmother and our elders, but it's a new generation and a new time, so it doesn't work for us now. So I want us to look at, how we are breaking cycles. I don't call them curses, but how do we break cycles, and how do we create our newfound what do we do with our newfound freedom? Our ancestors lived and died for us to have these moments. So why are we still living as if they didn't, right? Like, so what do we do with this newfound freedom? How do we live our lives and understand our friendships, right? Like, friendships are not just based off a parallel play as if we were 3 years old. Friendships have to be intentional with skills and with awareness and with boundaries and with conversations around how we love and appreciate, like the two of you all, in exchanging coloring books. Um, so I wanted a book that allowed us to look at ourselves and look at ourselves deeply with introspection. And I also wanted clinicians to see us fully for who we are, to see us beyond the stereotypes of being angry, or beyond the stereotypes of being like welfare queens, or all the negative things, right? Or even some of the things that seem positive but work against us, like strength seems positive, but it works against us. If you keep putting too much on something, it will break, right? So, like, don't test my strength. Um, and so I wanted something for us to see ourselves that was clinical, and something for other people to see us and realize just how precious we are. And the fact that we keep choosing to go to therapy means that we are trusting them to see us fully and not see us through filtered or biased lenses. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, we deserve this.
Yeah.
And thinking of the book, you start off talking about maternal roles and motherhood and the conditioning of it all. Why would you say this is a good place, or why did you start off the book this way?
I didn't write the book in the order that it's presented.
Oh,
But it's so perfectly laid out, though. Like, I have to say that, because this was a question that, like, I formulated, because as I was reading it, I was like, this is an interesting place to start. I think your book overall the way that it's structured, even though you may not have organized it this way, for me, it was a good build up. Like it literally took me from this chapter. Now I have this knowledge. Okay, now I use it in this chapter. Now I have this knowledge. I use it with this chapter. So for me, you starting there, especially in my motherhood journey, where I'm so deep in the trenches of your 30s, feel like you really got to look at your parents as who they are. For me, that's been my journey. So it starting there was like, okay, this is a little painful. Why we have to do this? But let's do this.
So I wrote the book in different order. I wrote the book based off of where spirit was guiding me at the time. If you guys can't tell, I talk about spirit a lot because I wrote the book with spirit. I wrote the book with my guides. But the first chapter I wrote was actually understanding friendship, which also talks about family. And it talks about how family is disjointed based off of slavery and how we make friendship that is akin to siblings and akin to cousins and akin to aunties and uncles, but there's no blood relation. And part of that, again, is based off of history and survival. And it makes sense now that so many of us are transit. You know, I'm from Los Angeles, but I've lived in the DC area for 28 years. Yes, 28. Don't worry. I know I look good. Don't worry about it. So I'll tease it. I'll tease it. But when it was time to organize the book, Myra, I had to I just sat with it for a while, and I had the table of contents and I had the chapters kind of round, and I just moved them around like a puzzle to see what was going to make sense. And remember, I'm an educator. So that point where you said I built it up, that was intentional. And if you pay even closer attention, you see that although the book is called The Essential Guide for Counseling Black Women, I don't talk about clinical talk until the end of the book. That is when I talk about disorders. That's when I talk about emotions, because we are more than all of the things that they say that we are when we get into the clinical setting. We are free and we are establishing friendships and we are trying to understand different parts of ourselves. So although I didn't write it in this order, it is the order that I chose for it to be in so that it could make sense. So that by the time we get to the clinical piece, people are not taken aback. They instead are like, okay, I understand how I got to this place and what I can do. I also wrote in there for my clinicians for them to analyze their own thoughts. There are tables in there around their biases and the need for introspection. You know, like, what did you think about Black women before you read this book? And what do you think about us now that you've read this chapter? You know, where did your narrative and stories come from? And is it we are transforming as Black women, but you too need to transform as a clinician, because as we are growing and evolving, you have to grow and evolve to meet us there as well.
Yes. And I think that's a perfect like shift into, I really wanted to, because you kind of already answered the question, but I wanted to engage you in a question or conversation around Black women therapists in particular taking on this book. It felt as though like I was on like a healing journey, but also at the same time I was like struggling because I was like, wait, I also am a therapist. So like how am I to navigate both of these like situations, especially when I say you hit me hard when you talked about, your mom. And even later on, when you talk about the friendships, you talk about what did you see your mom's doing with friendships, right? Like it's this thread here. And again, I'm going back and forth between I'm a therapist, but I'm also a Black woman. But like I want the benefits of the book, but I also need to prep the benefits. And I'm curious your thoughts on if there was one question for our Black women therapists who are also working with Black women clients, what would be the question you would want the Black women therapists to have for themselves, or what would you want to leave them with as they're navigating what I just described for you as the experience that I was having?
The question that I would want Black women therapists to ask themselves as they're reading this book is, why was I chosen to be a healer? What did the ancestors and God see in me that decided that I would be the one to heal? And am I using that knowledge, wisdom, and intuition properly? And I say it that way because we are Black women who are likely naturally healers and intuitive, but we're trained in therapy, in theory that was created by and for white men. So we're trained in the concept of white supremacy within healing, but yet we're embodied in Black women and we are treating Black women. And so what that creates is a sense of disconnect right? We are like, but Freud said X, Y, and Z. But Beck said X, Y, and Z. But Rogers encouraged us to ask these kinds of questions. But that's not always what our Black women clients want and need. Sometimes they come to us because they believe we're more relatable. If they just wanted simple theory, then they can go to anybody. But they want an intersection of theory and culture, theory and relatability, theory and intuition, theory and spirit. And why were we chosen to do that? Why were we chosen to do it in these Black bodies? Why were we chosen to do it in these women bodies? And so I think that's the question that I would want people to ask. Like, why was I chosen to be a healer? And am I doing it correctly? Am I asking the right questions? Am I considering the right things? Am I having countertransference myself because there's too much relatability? Have I healed? Are there questions that I'm refusing to ask my clients because I'm afraid that their answers are going to trigger something in me? Do I lean in on particular topics because I'm trying to be healed in the space with them? You know, like I want us to be introspective and reflective. The book is difficult. Don't, well, let me not say it like this. The book is great. It's wonderful. And it's not a book that you can sit and read in a couple of days.
Right.
You have to sit and process it. You have to write in the margins. You have to highlight. You have to go back and ask your mama questions and talk to your homegirls and things like that. Yeah. I want us to be more introspective in our space too. I don't want us to take for granted the fact that just because we're Black women, we know how to counsel Black women, because that's not the case.
Mm. Mm. You know, something that also stood out for me in your book was in your Move It Beyond Stereotypes chapter, how you talk about how praise can be harmful. And so specifically you talk about how like there's this narrative that Black women can do it all. And if we praise that, it can actually harm them. And in the book you go a little bit more in depth, but I'm thinking about like, let's say someone who's maybe not in therapy and they're also not a clinician. What are some ways in which somebody who may be getting this praise feels I got to push a little bit harder, or now it's to their detriment because they're getting this praise and they're like, okay, I want more of that praise, but they're harming themselves? In what ways can we support that person? Like, what is something that we could tell them, being that the three of us are clinicians? But Dr. Plummer, I want to hear from you first a little bit of like where your thoughts are going, because again, I've seen this before, I've experienced it, but when you pointed it out, I was like, I've never actually sat with this or actually really thought about it.
Yeah. That type of that type of praise can become really like you mentioned, and it's in the book, is detrimental because it sets the standard that in order to get any type of validation, I have to go above and beyond, and that just being myself is not enough, right? And that is also coupled with language that we've been conditioned through, which is I have to work twice as harder to be considered half ass or one as the same, right? And so we're constantly being told we have to work twice as hard. And it makes sense if you think about it from a margin perspective. Think about a piece of paper and you have the margin, and we're outside of the margin because we're Black, and then we're further outside the margin because we're women. So we have to work once as hard to get equal to Black men, and then twice as hard to get equal to white men. And I keep saying white men because white men have become the standard based on the foundation of the US at the very least, right? Like education was designed for white men, university was designed for white men, clothes were designed for white men, you know, all of these things. And so we had to work harder to become quote unquote equal with them. The challenge with that is that we were never really designed to be equal with them, not in society, but also not by spirit. So why are we measuring ourselves to something we were never designed to measure ourselves against? And in that regard, that's why we end up working twice as hard, because we're not connected to who we are supposed to be. We're connected to who somebody else told us we should be. And if we connect to who we are supposed to be, which is very much a spiritual process, and it does mean that we have to deconstruct some of our cognitions and our core beliefs. And we have to think about it in a more existential kind of way. We don't feel the need to work twice as hard. We just work in our alignment that feels right for us. So what I would say to a person who's like, oh my God, I need this validation, I would say, and who are you seeking it from and why? And then they would say, I'm seeking it from this person or that person if they have an answer right away. And I would say, and tell me how that person has more power to validate you than you have to validate yourself. And then they would tell me, wherever that is, and we would get deeper and deeper into that, which is why introspection is so powerful. Um, and I wouldn't condemn them or judge them as they think about that, because remember, if we're in our 20s and our 30s, we've been conditioned this way for 20 and 30 years, right? Like, it's not that we are wrong for thinking the way that we're thinking. It's that this is our moment to explore so that we can change. We've been thinking that way for so long and it has served us. But if you pick up the book, it means that it's no longer serving you. And you may pick up the book because somebody recommended it to you. You may pick up the book because somebody gave it to you. You may pick up the book because you're drawn to it. But all of that, as an avid reader, I believe books choose us and we choose them because there's something we're supposed to be learning in that moment. So if you pick up the book, it means it's time for you to engage in transformation. So don't resist it.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Well, this is perfect because we're going to our next segment, which is our unpacking segment. And this is where we just reflect, you as well included, of like what we've been speaking about. Uh just kind of going off of what you just said. And you said it earlier too about, like you said, you have 3 full-time jobs, but you're great. You're fine. You're not burnt out. I think I've learned this probably the last 2 years, I would say, is that understanding my own capacity and that it looks different because I have a friend that works like 3 full-time jobs as well. I don't know how she does it, but she does it, and it's not for me. It's not, and it doesn't mean that I'm not capable and I'm not strong and I'm not powerful and all these things. It means that I understand myself and I understand like where I'm supposed to be at. And it's not to say it's bad for her to have the jobs, because if she can do it and sustain and take care of herself, then that's what she's supposed to do. So as you're talking about this, it's just a reminder of understanding your capacity, understanding your energy, understanding your own self-care practices, just understanding self.
Which,
Yeah.
which
Yes.
is that important piece, right? It's that self-awareness piece. And I mentioned in the book and with the work with my clients, in fact, with my clients, when they come to start working with me in the beginning, one of the first things they're going to do is a self-study. Which means they need to understand and study how they make decisions. They need to understand, which means it's a decision making process. Everybody has a decision making process. Even people who are impulsive have a decision making process. So, understanding what your decision making process is, understanding what your communication style is. There's various research around what these styles are, but are you a who, a what, a when, a how? Like, what is your communication style? um, Understanding and learning your communication process, right? Like when you are in conversation with somebody, do you immediately respond or do you pause, right? Like, are there certain situations where you pause and certain situations you don't? How do you love? How do you take love? How do you appreciate love? And do you practice that with yourself, or is that only external where you practice that love with other people? What is your spiritual walk and your spiritual journey? So this is part of the conceptualization process where they have to study themselves. Um, and then once they study themselves, they have an increased self awareness. So as I dive deeper into conversations with them, they're able to make certain connections. Because for some of my clients, they're only with me maybe an hour a month or an hour every 2 weeks. And so they have a lot of work that they have to do in those other days, in those other hours. And so I need to make sure that they're set up for success. But like I mentioned before, even when I signed the book, I'm also signing around self awareness because, again, I hope that the book serve as a mirror for people to see themselves. I guess that's the other thing too, Myra, around the question you asked about Black women who are therapists. Are we seeing ourselves, or are we only seeing ourselves through our work? Because we are more than our work. If we were supposed to just be workers, we would be working when we're at 5. And that makes sense in some cultures, but not here in the US. And the same goes to like being a mother. If we were just supposed to be a mother, we would be a mother when we were 5, right? Like when we were 3.
Yep.
Like our lives are more than our work. They're more than our motherhood journey. Um, they're more than all of that. And so let us fully live in the comprehensive nature of who we are, and that means that we have to deconstruct and explore each element of ourselves.
Yes, that was so beautifully said. My takeaway is take time with my introspection of self
Yeah,
overall, like as a whole.
yeah,
Like really taking the time to look at the layers of who I am, especially as I shift in different chapters of my life. So thank
yeah.
you for that.
Yeah, and I think that goes back into why I'm back into enjoying coloring so much,
Mm,
because coloring, you don't have to think about the fact that you're coloring until you're ready to change the crayon or the color pencil, right? But there's soothing elements when you are doing hand-eye coordination. It also changes your breathing. So you may find that you take these different deep breaths when when you're coloring because you're like exhaling it all out, exhaling, excuse me. With that though, your mind, because of what's happening and you're calming your nervous system, your mind is now able to start wandering, not wondering, but wandering. And so as it wanders, allow it to go into the places and the spaces because that's part of your introspection as well. So there may be, if a person decides to color or to paint or to do something with their hands, they're gardening, it might be good to have like a little notebook nearby so that if there's something in particular that you need to write down, you have it there, but you don't stay fixated on it. And then you can go back to whatever it is that you were doing that was calming your nervous system.
Look, the way you just described that, I'm like, I want to color right now. I'm gonna color after this, y'all. That just sounds so peaceful. Like, I love that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And in wrapping up, we always do takeaways and homework.
Already? Oh, all right.
Look, time flies when you're having a good
I
time.
know, I know. Spirit is present, you know? All right. I'll take it then. I'll take it.
Is there something you want to leave the audience with? Anything that comes to mind?
Buy the book.
Yes. Buy,
Go
buy
to
that.
therapy. Your friends are not your therapist. Your friends are your friends.
Mm,
So go to therapy. Uh, the good church folks say, but why go to therapy? Because God made pastors, God made church, God made doctors too. And when you get sick, you go to the doctor, right? When you want to get your teeth cleaned, you go to the dentist, right? God made therapists too. So go ahead and go to therapy. Read my article in Ebony around how to find your perfect therapist. That means you got to interview your therapist. Don't just take the first person available because that may not be the right fit for you. And if you're listening to this, you are already a person that believes in healing. So make sure that you do somebody else a favor and you actually send this podcast to your friends. Send it to your homegirls, send it to your sorority sisters, send it to your mama because she need healing too. Mama, I hope you listening because Lord knows you need to read this book. I love you though. Send it to your aunties, send it to your cousins, your homeboys who are loving on Black women. Send it to everybody. Send this podcast to them so that they could start to think about other things and get the book.
yes, y'all get that book. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah. No, you're welcome. So everybody will be back with another episode of Black Women Healing Podcast next Monday.
It's your favorite co-host, Donika and Myra, and we appreciate you all for listening to Black Women Healing Podcast.
If you like what you just heard, go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe on all of our platforms, which can be found in the show notes.
We appreciate every type of engagement as it creates more exposure and helps our community get this healing on the daily.
See y'all next Monday. And don't forget, we are healing on
On the
the
daily.
daily.